Okay, g'day everyone, how are you? I hope you're all keeping well. Welcome back. So, I'm totally unprepared for tonight's stream. There's just way too many things going on, and there wasn't a lot of activity on the SurveyMonkey questionnaire. So what's been happening the last week? Not a great deal hobby wise. As you can probably see, the background behind me has changed a little bit. That 6x10 table that I was building in my room was totally unnecessary and consumed this room. It just it caused a lot of problem. It really limited the space in here. You can also see left shoulder, my brewery is gone. That's been taken back to the workshop. To the
I can see it every day. I see it driving down the road. Bumper stickers. I believe in mass and suspended.
studio sorted out at Knights of Dice, getting the gaming room at home sorted out. As you can see, the background is different. As I was saying, I got rid of that great big 6x10 table. Totally overkill. It was just, I don't know why I thought I'd build that at home. They've got a massive space at the studio for gaming, so if we play big games, those can be played there. So yeah, that's where we are with that. I haven't been doing any painting or anything. The weather here has been terrible. I don't know if we can, I know you can't see it, but on that table over there is my painting desk now. That still needs to be set up properly. You can see that blue box kind of just about here is my spray booth with the ventilation that still needs to be connected up to the outside, so I can finally prime stuff, airbrush stuff inside. Yeah, we'll see. That'd be nice to get going. So there we go. That's what's been happening the last week or so. Not a lot of hobby work, mostly just sorting things out, organizing stuff, boxing everything up, just sorting out the massive amounts of mess that are around the place. G'day Ben, how are you mate? I am not going to tell a joke. So, where are we? What's been happening on the SurveyMonkey? We've only got 3 topics to run through to tonight, so it might be a quick show. Like I said, again, not massively prepared to run through too much of anything at all. It's just one of those crazy sort of weeks where time just seems to disappear. So let me quickly bring up these SurveyMonkey results and have a quick look. Okay, so the first one here, Mitch Newman. Oh, I should also point out that the music that we'll hear through tonight's show is, again, more music from Tunguska Electronic Music Society, which I've downloaded from jamendo.com. It is licensed under Creative Commons. Here you can see that little thing here on that starting soon slide. There we go. All music in tonight's show is from Tunguska Electronic Music Society under Creative Commons Attribution, no derivatives, 3.0 unreported, blah, blah, blah. You can check that out at Jamendo. All the links are in the description. So we'll see whether I continue to use music or not. I did get hit with a couple of copyright claims, which I had to fight off, but it's all fully above board. So here we go. Mitch Newman suggests a topic about miniatures gaming media, and he asks me, what are your thoughts on the current state of miniatures coverage in various media, i.e. websites dedicated to covering miniatures like Beasts of War, YouTubers / people such as yourself, etc. How do you think it could be improved to reach a wider audience? I'm not really sure. Sort of how many, let's first talk about how many outlets there are for people to get content out there, right? So there's your social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Twitters, YouTube, I guess if you want to call it a social media platform. and websites, pretty much. Basically, they're the platforms where people can push content out, where people are going to see it. I think most of it's hard to say. Most of the activity seems to happen there, or there is quite a lot of activity that happens on Facebook. I was going to say we're all on Facebook, but there's a good percentage of people who I know who aren't on Facebook. But if you're on Facebook, there's an abundance of choice out there for you to find content that you're interested in. In terms of direct media like this, in a video format or something that's a little bit more entertaining, like the Beasts of War channel, like people who produce battle reports, a whole bunch of the X-Mini wargaming crowd who have their own channels. How do we get it out there? Look, I don't know. I think it's just a matter of doing your thing and sort of putting things out there on the internet, and if people are interested in finding it, they'll find it. I mean, you can go ahead and push it and share your videos on all the platforms and Facebook pages and all that sort of stuff, but I don't really enjoy that sort of stuff. I don't do any of that. I put stuff on my Rubbish In, Rubbish Out page on Facebook. The link for that is in the description. And that's about it. Every now and then, if I come across a thread, for example, in the Beyond the Gates of Antares Facebook page, I've linked a couple of my videos because I've seen people bring up some sort of topic about sort of alien foliage or that sort of stuff, or different clump foliages and all that sort of stuff. So I'd throw up every now and then one of my videos sort of blatantly just promoting my channel, that, hey, listen, this is a video I did on making your own clump foliage or making your own flocks or whatever. But I don't really push it out there too much. I don't know. I don't watch a lot of that stuff that sort of people put out there. I don't know. The WGC community page sort of seems to be a fairly sort of robust outlet for people, specifically from the YouTube community, because I mean that's where those guys come from, for putting their content out there and linking off to their blogs and their videos and all that sort of stuff. How do you get it out there? I don't know. I don't know. It's just a matter of creating your own content and being interesting and unique, and sort of, if people find it interesting, they'll be there and they'll watch it. I don't know how my channel's grown. Mostly because I just ramble on and talk about a whole bunch of shit. But even my tutorials that I used to do, they're all very simple sorts of things that I don't know. People, for some weird reason, seem to enjoy watching me or listening to me. In the case of these sorts of live streams, I don't know why. So, how do you think it could be improved to reach a wider audience? Look, I guess if you're a wider, or okay, outside of the community that we're already involved in, what is a wider audience? Are we talking sort of mainstream people here? Because if that's the case, then really, aside from what people are doing at the moment, the only way that you can reach a wider audience is on radio or on TV. Now, the blog sphere, what's it called? The potosphere, whatever the fuck it's called. I think that's the only place that you're going to sort of get wargaming content in any sort of radio type show in people's blogs. You'll never see it on mainstream radio. I don't think you'll ever see it on mainstream TV. There was a series that was done quite some time ago about historical gaming. I don't have the reference. If I look at these questions before I do this show, then I can think about them and I would have had this ready. But that was a really interesting show. I'll try and find out what it is. I can't remember off the top of my head. I really enjoyed it. It was 3, 4, 5 parts. I can't quite remember. But I'll throw that in the description when the video goes live to the public tomorrow night. I really liked that. That was filmed in a studio and aired on British TV. And look, it was interesting from my perspective because I'm a wargamer. There would have been a whole bunch of people who would clicked onto that channel and gone, what the fuck is this? And clicked off. But, I mean, I guess it's one of those things, right? I never understood people who sit there and watch pool, 8-ball, snooker, that sort of stuff. It can be mildly entertaining every now and then. I guess it depends on what sort of commentators you have. If you've got people commentating on a game, it really makes the situation quite different. Have a look at things like Magic the Gathering, right? You've got a couple of people sitting around playing card games, and as long as you've got sort of a couple of commentators sitting back from the action, they can watch it live, they can talk about it live, and they're sort of... I've seen some X-Wing videos like that, and War Machine, Privateer Press do some of their tournament coverage like that. And that's really interesting because you get to AC the game, and then you get to see and or hear from sort of people that might understand a little bit more and can really read a lot into what's been played on the table in front of them. So that's the first one from Mitch Newman. Thanks, Mitch, for sending that in. I really appreciate it, mate. Let's have a quick look. I don't think there's anything going on in this chat. Am I still live? We are streaming live. And we have 2 people watching. Probably because the stream is crap. It looks like a crap stream. But anyway, what can you do, right? What can you do? It's Monday night. I hope it's Monday night because it is Monday. There we go. Rightio. So, what else have we got going on in that Survey Monkey result? I'm really looking forward to getting this place finished at home so I can get on. Oh, and you can see this table behind me, right? Finally, that 6x10 stupid idea is gone. I've got this old dining room table that used to be at the studio. I brought that home. There's a couple of extra chairs, so I have 6 chairs around that table. I can get my friends around. We can play some board games and mess around. I can also set up now some tables on there and get back to filming some battle reports. A lot of time... a lot of the chances that I get to play games, unfortunately, are in the evenings, and with a young daughter, and it's difficult, right, to organise games. So I'm hoping we can get things sorted out at the studio for some exciting other opportunities to pop up and sort of push forward, so we can produce a whole bunch of battle report content and all that sort of stuff during the day, and sort of. That'll be good fun. I won't have to then film all these battle reports solo, which I don't even mind doing. I really enjoy sort of the challenge of playing against yourself and trying to outthink yourself, and then sort of, I don't know, it's really difficult. I've spoken about that in the past. So, Aid from Wargaming for Fun. Thanks for tuning in, Aid. I did notice some of your comments last week. Excuse me. On the live stream last week. So Aid from Wargaming for Fun. I really love your channel, mate. I'm hoping that you guys will come back and sort of do some battle reports every now and then. I did watch the series that you did a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I don't know when it was filmed. That multi-part sort of campaign game. And then I saw your videos recently on building the No Man's Land table, and I was all excited. I was like, oh, fuck, Aid's back. He's sort of... He's going to get back into it. But then I noticed at one point during one of those videos you mentioned that it was December. So I think that was filmed pre you guys shutting your channel down and the website. Maybe, I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember if that happened this year or late last year. I can't remember. But then I was like, it's old content that is popping up. But I'm hoping that's a precursor to you and Andy coming back. Is it Andy? Abe and... Oh, it's probably not Andy, right? Fuck. Why don't I remember? One of those things, hey? Because I really enjoy the videos that you guys do. I enjoy the... whilst I don't play a lot of workshop games anymore, it's always good fun to have you guys on in the background. And as I mentioned to you in a comment on one of your videos, I've painted several armies to your... sort of listening to your games in the background. So I enjoy having them on, and I hope that you come back. Anyway, so Aid says... Topic... too realistic wargaming. He says, thanks for the recent Monday night vids, really enjoying your rambles. How do you feel about using actual people who fought in recent historical war games, such as Bolt Action or Flames of War? I enjoy Bolt Action and I'm happy to play the generic armies, but when it comes to actual people, heroes who gave so much for us, whose families still remember them, I feel uncomfortable. It feels to me like, here is Joe, who gave his life in a heroic action. His family still visits his grave every year. Now you can kill him every week. Don't get me wrong, I'm only stating an opinion, and like they say, opinions are like assholes, everybody has one. I wouldn't even mention it to any gaming opponents, but it would be interesting to see if I'm the only one who feels like this. Take care, and thanks again. Aid, you are not the only one who feels like that. It's come up many times from different people that I've spoken to about modern gaming, right? So modern gaming post World War II. The definition of modern gaming, I'm not going to... Right, I understand that modern gaming can go all the way from World War II up to now. And then near modern is a completely different issue, terminology aside, right? A lot of people that I know won't play modern games because it's too soon, right? It's too real. It's happening now. It's happened in the last 5-10 years. So they're not interested in that period. As you said, it feels a little bit disrespectful. And I can certainly understand that, but from my perspective, it's a game, right? I don't feel like I'm dishonoring anybody. I don't feel like I'm belittling anyone's involvement in any conflicts that have happened. I mean, your question says you're just wondering if you're the only one who feels like this. You are not. There's lots of people who don't want to game in periods that are a bit more current, and that might then extend to the heroes and stuff that you can get in some of these games, like named heroes, actual people who fought in these battles and in these wars and performed various heroic deeds. You're not the only one. Do I have those sorts of feelings? No, like I said, but I mean, I certainly don't mean any disrespect, and I'm not out there going, fucking look at this little Bobby Joe, fucking he got cut down in blah blah blah, the battle of what not. Here, let's see if he can do something better on the table. It's just a game to me, right? It's a game. I have family who've served in the first Gulf War. My brother served in the first Gulf War in Iraq in the 90s. My sister, she's a lieutenant commander in the Navy. She's done a tour in Iraq, and she's been all over the place. Her husband, he's done 6 tours. He spent 5 years in total in Iraq and Afghanistan, and my brother was a medic. I don't know. It's one of those things, I suppose, that comes down to your personal preferences. For me, it's just a game. We're playing toy soldiers, right? There's nothing to stop you from using that character and renaming him, right? I see a lot of that happening, and when I was a little bit more heavily involved in the Force on Force forum a couple of years ago, there were a lot of people there that would play modern games with the Force on Force rules from Ambush Alley Games, excuse me, but they would change it, right? The setting. It would be a fictional world with fictional armies. You'd still have a sort of a regular force versus sort of insurgents and all that sort of stuff, but they changed it just so for other people it wasn't so immediately now. This is real. This is what's happening now. So yeah, it's one of those things, I suppose. Change the name of them and use them in your armies. Right, and here we go. And the last question that we have for Survey Monkey, like I said, it's a very, very short survey this week. Only 3 responses. Last week, I think we had 6. If you do want to suggest a topic for me to have a ramble about, you can do that. There will be a link on my Rubbish In Rubbish Out page on Facebook. If you go there, have a look at facebook.com/Rubbish In Rubbish Out. It's the pinned post at the top. It's got a link in it, which I update every week. That link will take you to the Survey Monkey survey, where you can put in your topic and your question and all that sort of stuff. Leave a name if you want to. You don't have to. So here we go. So this question is from Ara. And I know that this is Ara from Mana Press, because he sent me a message on Facebook earlier on asking me how do I submit a topic and how do I watch your live show. And I know that he's watching because he says, hey, you're on, from Mana Press. So there'll be a lot of content for Tribal from me coming up soon. Now that I have my space, left shoulder, I've got to get used to this mirrored around the wrong way thing. Now that I've got my table at home and the space here is a little bit more usable, I can get around to doing some content for Tribal. And once the studio is fully up to scratch, I'm hoping the boys from Mana Press will come in and we'll obviously do a bunch of content with them there. So anyway, here we go. So, suggest a topic I can ramble about. Warhammer Total War. And he asks, tried it? I have not tried it. Is this the future of big unit wargaming? No space for huge armies, no time to paint them all, real focus on skirmish level combat, including Age of Sigmar. I haven't played Warhammer Total War. I haven't played any of the Total War franchises for a long time. Every now and then I'm like, I think the last one that I had was Total War Rome, maybe Rome 2. But I have no idea where it's gone. And I don't think I have it on Steam either. I think I look every now and then. I'm like, I'd love to play that, but I don't have it. Is it the future of big unit wargaming? I don't think so. Excuse me, I don't think it is at all. I can certainly see how some people who are interested in rank and file big block unit games, who may not necessarily have been interested in the Total War franchise before, might be interested now simply because of the fluff perspective, right? But I mean, if you take a step back and just think about it for a second, the Total War franchise, we're talking about computer games here, the Total War computer game, has always been big block, right? Rank and file sort of stuff. Mostly historical, right? Because that's how historical armies fought. Big block. So people who play those games, that's what they want. That's why they play it, right? There are those people who play those sorts of games on the tabletop because that's what they enjoy. I like a big block game. I liked fantasy for a long time. I haven't played it for many, many years now. I certainly have an interest in playing historical games, and I've got some Romans around the place and some Celts, and I've got a English Civil War pike and shot army and a bunch of Napoleonic armies and things that sort of in various stages of getting painted. They're long projects that will take a long time. That sort of, if one day I get around to finishing those off, that'll be cool. If I can actually manage to play a game, that would be wonderful too. But for me, they're the sorts of games that I enjoy in the tabletop. If I was a fantasy player, and if I was a current Warhammer Fantasy player, in this environment now where there is no more Warhammer Fantasy, because Workshops got rid of it and brought in Age of Sigmar, would Warhammer Total War replace my rank and file game? If I wasn't interested in anything else, perhaps. Is this the future of big unit wargaming? I guess it depends. If you're a Warhammer Fantasy player and you still want that big block feeling in that Warhammer Fantasy universe, then perhaps. I mean, there are alternatives, right? There's other alternatives. Mantic has picked up a shit ton of business for their Kings of War game. They released a whole bunch of army lists, codexes, whatever, for their game, Kings of War, to soak up all of these orphaned and marooned fantasy players. There are options for fantasy big unit wargaming. Though I suppose if you were heavily invested in the fluff and the world and the history and the story of the Warhammer Fantasy universe, which, let's face it, that's a big reason why a lot of people stick around in those games, right? It's because of the story, the fluff. Then yes, it might, I suppose. No space for huge armies. Well, it's again, I don't know. I suppose it just depends on how much space you've got. No time to paint them all. Real focus on skirmish level combat, including Age of Sigmar. I don't think that the Warhammer Total War per se, in this respect, is the catalyst for people to move towards or look at or sort of sidestep into skirmish level games. I just think that's a state of the industry. There's so much stuff being released, and I spoke about this before on Kickstarter and small little indie companies releasing new games and simple little rule sets, and that the amount of choice that we have these days is significant. That for a lot of people, it's easier, right? Not because I don't have space, or we have space, or you have space, or whatever, to store a big army. Not that we don't have time to paint a big army. It doesn't take a lot of space to store 200 figures, right? It doesn't take a lot of time. I will take that back, because it fucking takes a shit ton of time for me to fucking paint 10 dudes. Unless I'm really super enthusiastic about it, then it happens in a night or 2 nights. I think it's just a matter of the flavor, the choice, being able to sort of try different things, play this game on a Monday and that game on a Wednesday, and just try something different. So, is Warhammer Total War the catalyst for that? No, of course not. It's just the state of the industry. Let's have a look at these comments. Nice Orcs Nest t-shirt, says Olaf. Yes, I picked this up when I was in London, obviously, from the Orcs Nest, obviously. So let's just come back real quick to that Servo Monkey. So Warhammer tried it? No, I have not. Is this the future of big unit wargaming? No, for me it's not. I'm unlikely to buy Warhammer Total War because I'm not massively invested in the Warhammer franchise anymore. I do have armies floating around for it. If I ever want to use those armies in another big block game, then there are options out there for me. I'll probably have a bit of a foray into Kings of War, because it is a very good rule set. It's a very simple rule set. It's a quick rule set. It's easy to learn, and it's a fast game. It's a rapid game, and much like a lot of historical games out there, it's not bogged down by complexity. It's fairly simple. It's fairly simple, and I've got Mantic figures for it. I've got my undead armies from Workshop. I've got my Bretonians from Workshop. I don't know, I've probably got a few other things milling around the place somewhere. But for me, at least, in terms of big unit wargaming, yeah, Kings of War I'll give a shot, because I've got stuff milling around for it, and I've read through those rules several times and played a couple of demo games in the past, and I liked it. I'm also quite keen on the historical games, which, like I said, will be a long project for me. I don't like to play with unpainted miniatures. So it's a matter of the time to paint them all, right? So there we go. That's what we think. That's what I think. So there we go. They're the 3 questions from Survey Monkey tonight. Now, excuse me. What am I planning on doing this week? Look, now that I've got this place sorted out, I've got my painting desk over there. Fucking hell. Over there. That table behind me that I can start to play some games on. I'm really wanting to make some progress on my Boromite army from Warlord Games. I got another box of cool stuff in the mail today, so I'm excited about that. And I'm excited to get a table set up over there and start filming. Maybe another Saga Battle Report. Certainly some Tribal. Maybe I'll have a bit of a chat about Gates of Antares. I'm not sure. But painting, definitely. The weather has been shit. It is winter here now. It is cold and it's wet. So I need to get my spray booth over there plumbed into the ceiling and then outside, so I can prime inside, which will be lovely. I've got some of the Army Painter color sprays in the rattle cans, which I've been using. The yellow color, demonic yellow, I think it is, to do the base coat on my Boromites. So I'm going to decant some of that out of the can and use that through my airbrush. A little bit better control, and certainly in that spray booth, the amount of paint that's coming out will be a little bit easier to control through an airbrush. So that's what I'm hoping to get done this week. Right, back to these comments. Deus ZX, what is the current state of shops and clubs/gaming groups where you live? Why is this cut off like that? What do you think is the way forward for retail locations? I know you almost opened one a few years ago. Well, I did. If you guys want to hang on for 1 second, I'm going to go grab myself a glass of water. Now we'll put on some more music from the Tunguska Electronic Music Society, and I'm sorry if you don't like electronic music, but this album I'm really enjoying. This is their Tunguska Across Sphere Volume 3. It's really relaxing for me. They've, like I said last week, they've got around 40 albums on Jamendo.com, and this one has been interesting for me. Just a second, I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so there we go. We are back. Now, what were we talking about? That comment. What is the state of shops and gaming clubs and groups where you live? Look, I've never been a big club person, right? It's just one of those things where just time is the factor. And clubs always seem to happen on days when I don't have time. For example, there's a club on Tuesday that meets on Tuesday nights. I can't get down there because Tuesday nights is not a very good night for me. My dad comes on Tuesday nights to have dinner and spend time with his granddaughter. I used to be on the Merry Mashers Homebrew Club committee that happened on a Tuesday night. So Tuesday nights, I can't get to that club. On the weekends, when the Western Suburbs Wargamers Association, the WSWA, meet out west, it's far for me to go. It takes sort of almost an hour sort of by the time I stuff around, depending on traffic, to get out there. And it's on the weekend when I want to spend time with my family at home. It's hard to get out there. The local gaming store to me, which is a 5-minute drive from here, has their fucking gaming night on a Tuesday. And I've just gone through the Tuesday situation, right? It doesn't work for me. So, as far as the state of what the clubs are like, look, I don't know. I think they're sort of... They are one of the big places for people, at least in Melbourne, to go and play games. Because we don't have a lot of stores anymore that have a lot of gaming space. It's never been a massive part of the culture here. I did talk about this last week a little bit, and what is the future of retail environments, because there has been a shift from sort of the small little retail store to the place that is more community orientated, where they have a lot of gaming space and people come there and play. But that's still not the norm here. I think it's like that in the US a little bit more, where retail stores will be the home, so to speak, of several different sorts of clubs. Whereas here at the moment, clubs meet in community halls, scout halls, church facilities, those sorts of places. They're not normally associated with different sorts of stores. That is changing a little bit. House of War, I think, have 2 clubs, maybe 3 clubs that meet there and play from there. But that's just one store, right? In a city of 6 million people. Well, there's not 6 million people who live in Melbourne. Maybe 3 million in the inner city areas. So I don't know what the scene like that there is. What do I think the way forward for retail locations? Well, I talked about that last week. That came up in the chats last week, and I spoke about it then. That I think the situation is going to be much more significantly orientated towards community venues. Where well, not community venues, but community spaces where people play together. Yes, you'll have your retail component of it, but it'll be much more of a social environment. Organised activities, organised workshops, that sort of stuff, rather than purely being sort of come in, buy Space Marines and go back home. I think that's something that you'll start to see a lot more of. Legion of One says there are loads of simple historical games. War and Conquest, for example. There are lots and lots and lots of them. Lots and lots of rule sets. And I was talking to one of my friends just a couple of weeks ago who's interested in developing their own rules and quite disenfranchised with the 40k environment at the moment. Quite heavily into their tournament play and up at the upper echelons of tournament play here in Australia, and were really quite keen to produce their own rule set. And we had a big long chat with them about a whole bunch of different sorts of stuff. But one of the things that popped up was rule sets. There are lots and lots of rule sets, right? I mean, it's only been the last 20 odd years or so. Now that might seem like a long time, but it's not a long time. That the boxed set of stuff, as made popular by Games Workshop, has become the norm. Right, and I touched on this when I was talking about Bolt Action and Warlord Games. There has been, for many years, decades, companies that produced miniatures and companies and people that produced rule sets. Now, why are some more popular than others? It simply has to do with the shiny, right? That sense of satisfaction when you sit down and you look at something shiny. A nice rule book, right? There's nothing close by here, but a nice rule book. A lot of rule books out there that don't have big budgets, that are produced and written by one or two people and play tested by a small sort of group of 50 people or 100 people or whatever. That's a small group in my opinion. They don't have full color. They don't have images and graphics. I've seen a lot of them. And you see them all the time at the secondhand stalls, at various conventions and stuff like that. They're bringing buys in the swap stands and all that sort of stuff of rule sets. Now, I'm not familiar with War and Conquest, but so I have no idea what type of game it is in terms of how it's been produced. But there's lots of them out there. And you mentioned DBA. Well, DBA has been one of the mainstreams for a long time. Not mainstreams, it's not mainstream anymore, but one of the mainstays for a long time. And there's still clubs here. For example, the League of Ancients. I know a lot of people there play DBA or perhaps played. And a lot of them are now playing FOG. But there's lots of them out there. Yes, indeed. So Manapress asks, what are your thoughts on conventions, comparing one-day Salute with three-day cons like CanCon or GenCon, etc., and what's my preference? Well, I spoke about this in my first show, my sort of the differences that I noticed between CanCon being a three-day event here in Australia, held over the Australia Day long weekend in Canberra, versus the one-day event of Salute. Now, I was there with the chaps from Manapress, and I spent a lot of time with those guys, and I had an amazing time. It was great. Now, my perspective will be slightly different from theirs because I wasn't shackled to a desk, so to speak, pimping and flogging my game and talking to everyone who came along. I certainly know those guys needed a beer or two after the event. It was pretty full on for those guys. I think the reception for Tribal might have exceeded what they were expecting. It was very popular. What are my thoughts on conventions? Look, I'd love to see here in Australia more conventions similar to those that they have in America. Now, Salute for me, as I mentioned in one of the live shows, not last week, week before I think it was nothing pretty much more than just a market trade show, right? You pay your money to get in the door, and you walk around all the vendors, and you buy your stuff, and you go away, and there you go. And a lot of people I spoke to said that is the time of the year when they spend all of their money that they've been saving up for the next year of hobby stuff. They spend it all at Salute, buy up big, they go back home to wherever they're from, and that's what they've got for the year, right? That's what they look forward to. For me, it's like a big market, yeah? It's not exciting. Sure, it was wonderful walking around and seeing a whole bunch of different sorts of games and people and talking to a whole bunch of people and that whole social interaction. But it wasn't a convention. I wouldn't call it a convention. Is CanCon a convention? I wouldn't call CanCon a convention either. Now, as I said during the previous show, CanCon has a little bit more going on. There's tournaments for a whole bunch of different sorts of game systems. There's open play space where you can come and sit down with your friends and play games. There's board game libraries where people can come and take a board game off the shelf, out of the library, sit down, play board games with their friends. And then it's a bit more diverse. The traders stands, obviously there's a big focus on miniatures and stuff, but there's board game sellers there. There's people who do cosplay jewelry and all that sort of stuff. It's a slightly different show than Salute, but I still wouldn't call it a convention. Now, things like Gen Con and shows like PAX that are coming up at the end of the year here, they're what I call a convention. Now, in my other side of my life, in my other side of our company, I spend a lot of time traveling all over Australia to all different sorts of conferences for work, and those sorts of professional conferences, a little bit different, right? You obviously have your trade sellers there, and we have our stall there and pimp our software and sell our software and talk to our customers and all that sort of stuff. So you still have your traders, right? But the big difference being that there's lots of activities going on at the same time. So you rock up in the morning, 8 o'clock or whatever, and then the hotel staff give you fucking breakfast, and you have your croissants and your ham and cheese and whatever. And then they have their opening session, right? What's it called? Like where the keynote speaker, right, gives his address. All the delegates are there. They have their blah. This is what the fucking we're going to be talking about, and hooray, yay, motivation and excitement and whatever. Blah. And I've done way too many of them in my 20 years in that side of my life, and I'm way over it. But then everything splits off. If you're interested in a session about XYZ, it's in this room. If you're interested in a session about XYZ, it's in this room. If you just want to walk around the trader stands and talk about stuff, blah, go ahead and do whatever you want. But there's 3 or 4 different sorts of rooms and a panel talking about this and an open mic session talking about that sort of stuff. And I think that's what happens. I can't be 100% sure in some of these conventions that happen in America. They're somewhat similar, right? You have your trade area, your free play space, but then all the side activities. At 12 o'clock in room 1, XYZ from ABC Company, joined by LMNOP from QRS Company, are talking about these sorts of topics. How to go about producing plastic figures, right? And the process of designing for injection molding. And in the other room, we're guest speaker, blah, 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 whatever, is going to be talking about how they've used Kickstarter successfully to launch ABC XYZ. That's what I would love to see happening more of here in Australia, because obviously that's where I live, right? But I don't know how well that's going to do. I have for quite some time, and I have a document around on the place on one of my computers or on a hard drive somewhere that I've been noting things down in probably for a little over a year about different sorts of things that I'd love to see at a convention. So that it's a little bit more than just sort of rock up, talk about miniatures and sort of play some games and then fuck off. There's actual reasons for you to go there. I can talk to anyone about miniatures at the hobby shop. I can play a game with anybody here at home or at the hobby shop or at the gaming club or whatever. But what I can't do is sit down in a room with 30 other people and in front of an open panel of people who I know in the industry or have heard of or have made or produced games that I play, and talk to them and say, I've done a little bit of casting. One of the problems that I have is with ABC. How have you guys overcome some of the problems from a commercial perspective? Because from a hobby perspective, I understand that technology and stuff is a little bit different, but how did you go about the process of doing XYZ ABC? Who knows? That sort of discussion, right, that you want from a convention. That's what I would love to have. So what are my thoughts on conventions? I'd love them to be a little bit more full on, right? I understand that takes a lot of time, a lot of involvement, a lot of effort. It requires a significantly dedicated team. And it's not easy, and a lot of money. But I think there's a market for it. So going back to what I was talking about before, Deus Ex was talking about what's the state of gaming clubs. He mentions, I can't even relate, clubs are almost non-existent here in the States. Really? Well, I guess maybe my perception of what I'm calling a club is slightly different, because I know that Octave, for example, from Play It Painted, talks quite a lot about meeting at his local gaming club, not gaming club, his local store. I can't remember what it's called. Now he's in the US, obviously, so maybe the gaming is based around the stores. And that's what I see more of happening here in Australia, and that's where I think things will start to go here more. You'll start to see bigger stores opening with more gaming happening, more gaming spaces, running a lot more organised play, a lot of social activities, with a kitchen and a beer license, an alcohol license. Okay, so Mana Press says breweries are like social places, spaces now, family-friendly board games, etc. That is happening quite a lot, and I think what's given rise to that is the craft beer movement, where you have smaller breweries that, in order to talk to more people about beer and get their products out there, they open up their brewery. They get people to come along, and they're certainly community environments. They're family-friendly. And they generally got good food. You can get your good, tasty craft beer directly from the breweries. And I think that they are certainly on the lookout for people to be hosting activities at their breweries to get people there. Might be a good outlet for clubs to be looking at. So Legion of One, okay, cool. War and Conquest is Warhammer Historical 2.0. Really nice shiny book written by Bob Broom. I really like it. You recommend you have a look at it. Well, I don't know why I keep looking around. I've got a bookshelf. Oh, I got it right. It's on my left shoulder. I've got a whole bunch of shelves and stuff to come along this wall where I can put my armies, a couple of display cases to put some of my bigger stuff that I've painted in those cabinets, and hopefully motivate me to finish painting that guy there from Savage Forge Games. For my cabinets and all my rule books and everything. I've got a whole bunch of the old Warhammer historical books. And they're lovely shiny books. Lovely shiny books. So War and Conquest is pretty much Warhammer Historical 2.0. Well, I'll have to have a look. I agree. I would like to see Salute be more like that. It would be awesome. Like those conventions that I was talking about, right? Yeah, it would be cool. And I think that's I don't know what other shows happen in the UK. I know that the UK Games Expo has just finished up recently, and a lot of people said that that's a much bigger show than Salute. But here we go. So Mel's joined us, a train shooter. Hey bud, passing through as I'm having a brew. The club scene is huge in the UK, especially outnumber hobby stores, including factoring in GW stores. I think that it's interesting. I mean, we all sort of think of the UK as this gaming mecca, right? Where people are playing games constantly all the time. They must have the best stores and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, I really struggled to find gaming shops while I was there in the UK. And a lot of people I spoke to said, look, most of us buy our stuff online. For us, we have to travel 20 miles, 30 miles, or whatever, however far 30 miles is, or whatever, I don't know. I wish the world would just move to fucking metric, right? It is the only sort of scale that makes any sense. I say that having been brought up with it, right? But, I mean, it's logical. It's logical. How far is a mile? Right? How many feet? How many yards? How many meters? I don't know. Who cares? And they said they buy a lot of their stuff online. And they game at clubs. Where's the nearest gaming club, for example? There's a lot of that happens on the Gates of Antares Facebook group. I'm in Chestershire or whatever. And I want to play some games. And then a whole bunch of people will come up and say, hey, listen, the gaming club in Brompton or wherever, or this Borough Peters, whatever, 30 miles from you, etc. So, I mean, I find that really interesting. The UK Games Expo is 90% board games, mate. And I think that's sort of a great place to be. If you sell miniatures, it might sound weird and odd, but joining those two markets together, they're like, it's like gateway drugs, right? People talk about weed being a gateway drug. I don't want to have a discussion about that. I don't think it is, but that's not what we're talking about. Just a sort of it's easy for people to play board games, like I talked about last week. And I think you'll find that there'll be a certain sort of percentage of those people who are interested in playing board games, who will then find a crossover into playing tabletop games. But yes, I understand the need to have different events for them. So, do I still have my $400 dragon from Heresy? I hear they're having some trouble now, struggling with money. The dragon was not $400. The dragon was £300, which at the moment is roughly $600. Thank you very much. It's a $600 dragon. Yes, I still have it. It is sitting on that shelf over there somewhere. I've got a feeling it's behind that little orange tray over there. I still have it. I will get around to it at some stage. It's one of those special projects which I don't want to really rush. But yes, I still have it. I do want to put it together. Now, I did want to talk about this. I had it in my little notebook to talk about, but I didn't bring it up last week, and we might have a bit of a chat about it now. So I hear they're having some trouble now. Well, yes, Andy's been posting on Facebook a little bit from Heresy Miniatures that he's struggling with orders. It just hasn't been enough to keep things going. He's was mentioning that he's had to let one of his employee, or perhaps his only employee, I'm not 100% sure, go because there just hasn't been the orders to support it. So I made a note in my notebook to have a bit of a think about this and why might that be happening. Now, Heresy Miniatures, is it Heresy? Yeah, it's a Heresy Miniatures. Yeah. Better make sure I'm talking about the right people. Have a massive range of miniatures. Now, you'd think that, okay, you've got a huge amount of products. Why would you be struggling to sell stuff? What is the influence? What's happening? Well, I think that part of it has to do with the massive number of small skirmish games that are available on the market now that require you to have small warbands. Now, why would that be a problem? I don't know. This is it's. I haven't spoken about it because I'm still trying to understand why. Right? Because another game that I'm interested in playing. This is not a test, which is produced by World's End Publishing in the US. They don't produce any miniatures. It's just a rule set, right? This is not a test. It's a post-apocalyptic game, and look, use any miniatures you want. So that's perfect, right? You jump onto places like Heresy, and there's a whole bunch of post-apocalyptic figures and all different sorts of weird beasts and all that sort of stuff monsters that you can use for those games. So you'd think it would be doing all right? At the same time, though, I think you get a lot of people who are moving from these boxed set environments into these games and not knowing what to do. This might sound a little condescending, but I feel that there are a whole bunch of gamers out there who don't know how to collect miniatures. That might sound strange, but let me elaborate. This is just a gut feeling, right? Now, I don't know. You might know people like this. That I don't know what miniatures to get or where to get them from or how to find out where to get those miniatures from. Unless it's in the box with a fucking cover on it that say 11 miniatures for your post-apocalyptic skirmish faction XYZ. Right? How better can I explain that? I don't know if that makes sense. Like, this is not a test, right? Let's talk about this. Let's use this as an example. And there's several different factions in that game, right? Let's just say there's 4 factions. Good guys 1, good guys 2, bad guys 1, and bad guys 2, right? They're obviously not the names of the factions. For some people to get into this game, it's not easy for them to go looking through many of the hundreds of manufacturers of miniatures and find miniatures that they want to put into their Good Guys Faction 1. They kind of need a box set that says on it, this is not a test. Good Guys 1, 11 figures. Then they can buy that box set and put it together and go, there's my faction. Hooray! That's how I feel that some people need to be able to play games. And so because Heresy doesn't have that sort of structure, I don't know, maybe that's having an influence. I know they do have some boxed sets for their post-apocalyptic factions. I don't know. It's really interesting. Coming back to these comments, so Super Dash Render says, I'm in the US and metric system is so much better. I wish I would it would switch here. It is much better. It makes way more sense. It's a decimal based system, right? Not a fraction based system. And decimal based systems are what we use for our currency. You don't use fractions for your currency because it's confusing as fuck, right? So you use decimals for your currency. Every planet, every place on the planet. Thank you to the Indians, by the way. That might be debatable, and then we can sort of talk about that later. It doesn't make sense. Fractions, it doesn't make sense. You can't measure things in fractions. You measure things with decimals. Board games is how I get a ton of people in my store. It leads to all kinds of tabletop and RPGs. That's from Max Havoc. Yeah, and I was talking about this last week when someone had brought up his House of War, one of the stores here in Melbourne. Are they on the right track? And I said, look, they need to significantly increase their board game stock because board games are easy to sell. It's a much wider audience. And you get people in there, and the board games cover so many different styles of play and so many different genres that you'll find people who will naturally gravitate to a board game style that naturally extends to this type of role-play game or sort of this type of tabletop game. You need to have them. Legion of One, on the board games note, they are the drug, I think. That is why Mantic, is that Mantic? And now GW are producing boxed games. Very jelly of your dragon. Yeah, well, I'm super excited to have that dragon. Yes, and I totally agree with you that more specifically Mantic than GW, and I'll explain why I think in a minute. That Mantic put together these little boxed sets that are much more sort of a board game style than a traditional miniature game. Things like Dead Zone, things like Mars Attacks, where you're playing on a mat, right? You've got a board. If you don't want to use the board, you don't have to use the board, right? That's what they say, but it's a board game. That's not really a board game, or not really a miniatures game. It's one of those crossover hybrids. I think that those guys produce those sorts of things to make it that crossover a little bit easier. I don't think GW do that. I don't think GW have never done that. Their box sets and have specifically been designed way back from the beginning, because some clever guy came along and said, look, if you want to sell more of these products, you need to sell a box set that people can buy and go to their friend and say, let's play this together. But they're not made in that board game sort of style or that board game sort of fashion. They're still very much miniature tabletop games. Of course, you have those exceptions. They're specialist games like Space Hulk and the new fucking Warhammer Quest, Silver Tower, or whatever the fuck it's called. I'm just a little bit bitter about that because I was cleaning up one of the lofts at the warehouse and I found my old copy of Warhammer Quest, and it was good. I love the old school games. I love the old school miniatures. There's somebody at Games Workshop is on, not just somebody, a whole bunch of them are on some really serious crack way too much Ritalin or something for their ADHD or whatever, or their art director has said, every asset we have in our digital library, put on that miniature. Every different skull, every different weapon, every different type of cloak. Put it together, merge all the bloody tools together, all the layers, decimate that shit and fucking send it to the printers. The miniatures are out of control. Out of control. I do not like to look at them. There is way too much going on for anything to make sense on any of the Games Workshop figures coming out of that place. And if you disagree with me, wonderful. Opinions are like assholes. We all have one, and yours is really bad. They're terrible, terrible, terrible figures. Scatterdice says, greetings. Mel says, I lagged out. It's got to go. Daddy time. Catch you later, mate. Well, thanks for tuning in, Mel. You've probably gone by now, but thanks for tuning in. I can only blame that lag on our crappy internet connection. It does tell me that I haven't lost any frames so far. Haven't dropped any packets or anything like that. Right. So there we go. Max Havoc says that that is totally a good idea. What is totally a good idea? Let's come back. Board games is how I get a ton of people into my store. Yeah. The little griffin is still cool though. What little griffin? Did I mention something about a griffin? Or something that related to a griffin? I don't know. There we go. So I'll come back and we'll check that that Survey Monkey. If you do want to suggest a topic that I can talk about, it really does help me. And as I start to get a little bit more structured and organized, I will start looking at those results from that little form that you can fill out. If you visit my Facebook page.com/rubbish in rubbish out, you'll find a link there. Click on that link. It's in the pinned post at the top. Talks about suggesting topics and all that sort of stuff. That'll take you off to a little form that you can fill out, and that helps me as I move forward to prepare content for the show. So if you do want to do that, that would be very good. What's your take on the Ninth Age? I don't know. I haven't looked at it. I've heard good things about it. But I don't know. I can't say anything about it because I haven't looked at it. Am I likely to look at it? Probably not. I'm not massively invested, and I never was massively invested in the Warhammer world story and history and fluff. I've read the Gotrek books because Gotrek and Felix books because I was interested in that. But in terms of the actual Warhammer world, no, not interested in it. Max Havoc. Yeah, the box sets for miniatures. Right. Yeah, I'll come back to that. That is totally a good idea. Well, look, I think it's one of those things nowadays where can you bear with me for just a second? I'm just going to mute this microphone and move it because the fucking boom that I've got for this mic is shit and it keeps dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping, right? Just a second. I'll put some music on for you. Right, I have no idea what was playing just then, but I'd love to change this boom. It's a piece of shit. I'd love to get a Rode PSA 1, but you know, funds, right? It's all money, and that's $100 for that microphone boom. Anyway, so I think it's important for people who have ranges of miniatures to try and bundle them together and really push and pimp them, and if possible get involved with games that suit those miniatures. Now we've got a small selection. Knights of Dice has a small selection of miniatures. Oh, that fucking curry tonight was so good. I ate so much of it that I've got some indigestion. My daughter, she's 2.5, and she loves curry and rice. Curry and rice, Dad. Curry and rice. And she fucking loves it. Hot vindaloos, man. I gave her a hot vindaloo when she was maybe 7 or 8 months old, and my wife was freaking out. She's like, fucking don't give her that vindaloo. And she loved it. Loved it. 7 months old. Fucking can't get enough of that stuff. And now she's 2.5. Or she'll eat anything that's hot. She loves it. I think it's important with these small little independent ranges of miniatures to bundle them together. I was looking through something on one of the Buy Swap Sell Facebook groups recently, and someone was selling a whole bunch of old stuff. And I saw some stuff at the Little Wars event that happened recently here in Melbourne from Ratham. Now, I don't know how many people know Ratham. Do you know about Ratham? There were a whole bunch of names that I'm slowly forgetting, but every time I see them, it comes back. It comes back. When you used to go to the shop and walk down the aisles of miniatures, and they'd just be blisters, characters for your D&D games, and all these sorts of places, gone. Not around anymore. Why? Because as the industry progressed, and as this instant gratification of, I need a box of 11 figures for my Good Guys Faction 1. That guy over there has a box called Good Guys Faction 1. I'll get his box. But the range over here that's got 50 different sorts of characters and sculpts, I can't fucking be bothered, or I don't know how to go through and look at each of those sculpts and go, I can use that guy for this, and that guy for that, and this guy for that, and XYZ, and slowly piece to myself together a warband. I don't think that a lot of people can do that these days. They're just so interested in, here's my quick fix, right? Just give me the one-click buy button so I can get my fix and then get back onto not painting my miniatures, right? Whilst I've got more miniatures on the way to not paint. I think that has been part of the demise of a whole bunch of these ranges. They just haven't kept up with this instant gratification and this simplification, so to speak, of selling miniatures. Now, as I was saying, Knights of Dice has a very small range of miniatures on our website that we don't sell a lot of. Why? Because there's some cool, fun poses in our range there, but there's not enough for there to be a faction of anything. That and fucking shipping prices out of Australia are ridiculous. I need to talk to Nick from Eureka about how he combats that. So I think it's important that if you're going to produce miniatures, then you have some way of being able to package them up into something that makes sense and easy for someone to buy and fit into whatever game they're playing. And if that means that you tie up with people who are producing rules or games and say, hey, listen, I love your franchise. I love, like, This Is Not a Test, for example, right? Some of our scenery has got This Is Not a Test brand on it. Because Joseph, who runs and is World's End Publishing, loves our stuff. We love his game. We spoke and said, hey, listen, I think it would be mutually beneficial if we slam each other's logos on each other's property. So if you produce a small range of figures, I think it's important to try and tie yourself up with other people who are producing a vehicle for you to get your miniatures out there. For example, we have a small range of Mudmen. Have I packed them up? I did pack them up. Hang on, give me a second. Here, wait 1 second. We produce a small range of Mudmen. Now, if I had the other camera set up, we could have a look at these properly. But they're very much... You're not going to be able to see this anyway because the live stream quality is terrible. But for those people who are watching when this goes live and the quality is fine, you might be able to see this little man here. Oh, and that's not going to focus because I've got the autofocus switched off. Oh, fuck it. You'll get a general idea, right? So we produce this small little range of Mudmen that are very reminiscent of the Asaro Mudmen from Papua New Guinea. Now we've got 10 of those in our range. There's a leader hero, 10? 9 maybe, I can't remember. No, 10, yeah. There's a leader, 3 dudes with bows, 3 dudes with spears, and 3 dudes with clubs. Now, the game Tribal from Mana Press, it has 5-man units. So you have a unit with short weapons of 5 men, a unit of 5 men with long weapons. You can have ranged weapons, but the game's really sort of trying to emulate that really close combat sort of environment. So whilst you can have a ranged unit, they're limited in the number of them that you can take and their influence and effectiveness during the game. So whilst I have those figures, it would be cool to be able to add a couple of extra figures to each of those different poses. So 2 more guys with clubs and 2 more guys with spears, and maybe a couple of extra hero sort of characters, and then be able to have a chat with those guys and say, hey, listen, we've got this cool range of figures that I think fits perfectly with your game. We'd love to be able to box them up with our logo on it and your logo on it, and be able to sell them. I think for people who are producing ranges of figures or have older ranges of figures, need to think about how they can get their figures out there. For example, Pig Iron Productions. Those guys sold their business several months ago. Now, I was interested in buying it, and I had a look through their finances. They sent me their P&Ls and their balance sheets and a bunch of other financial information that you need to have if you're considering buying someone's business. And the situation was quite dire. It had been slowly declining for a number of years. And it wasn't good. Now, they have a good range of figures. But I didn't obviously end up purchasing that range. But whoever did needs to make sure that they just don't do the same thing that those guys were doing. Because it doesn't work. It obviously doesn't work. And they would have looked at the P&Ls and the balance sheets and everything else like that. So you need to change it, right? You need to make sure that you do something differently. And part of doing something differently now is it's not just enough to have a cool range of miniatures, because you'll only get a small fraction of people coming around to your website or whatever looking for character figures. It's a small number of people now that do that. Or it's the people looking for that 1 or 2 extra figures to add to an existing group of figures that they've got. You need to have a complete range, right? A complete collection. So, Reddy Netty talking about the little griffin is still cool though. Is it a silver tower? The models are pretty lame, but there's a cute little griffin thing. Ah, right. So that's what that comment is about. There's a cool little griffin thing in the silver tower box. I don't know. I haven't looked at it. So Mana Press say I quite enjoyed the Warhammer World exhibition. Some of those earlier models straight out of White Dwarf were awesome to see in the flesh. That was amazing. Whilst I'm not a massive fan of Workshop these days, excuse me, you can't deny that a trip around Warhammer World is not good fun. It's undeniable, right? If you're in Nottingham, then you go and see it, whether you're a Workshop fan or not. Why? Because I mean, this is they've done so much for this industry, and they have spawned so many of the other companies around. And it's just awesome to go and have a look at these cool, awesome displays that I don't know. It's just good fun. I had a great time there too. Have a beer in Bugman's, have a look around sort of the exhibition. Good fun stuff. All right. There we go. And Max Havoc says, yeah, the box set for miniatures. Yeah. Mana Press says, what have you got in your mini range? Well, like I just said, we've got those little mudmen, which would be good for your game, for Tribal. And Scott's put together a faction of those and has converted a whole bunch of them so that he now has a faction with a hero, the chief, 2 heroes, and a unit of short and a unit of long weapons. And when we get around to it, I think we will recast and remold a whole bunch of those figures so that we actually have 5 different unique sculpts for each of those. But there we go, guys. We're almost 90 minutes into tonight's show. It's been wonderful to sit here and have a chat. Like I said at the beginning of the show, though, we were quite short on the topics in the little SurveyMonkey results thing. I am now going to, now that I've sort of gotten used to things, so this is the third week, sort of slowly start to try and get a little bit more structure to the show. So a little bit more content that's been a little bit more researched with some fancy slides and make some better use of the stuff that I've come to grips with so far. Thanks very much for tuning in, guys. Unless there is anything else that pops up in the comments in the next 5 seconds, I am out of here. I will catch you next week, and hopefully during the week, now that this place is sorted out and the studio is getting sorted out, with some more battle report content and maybe some of my own hobby activity, and hopefully a couple of terrain tutorials or little build-a-thons. We'll see what happens. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you next time, guys. Like I said, enjoy your week, and peace out. Cheers.